rearview mirror for a lot of Astros fans. Maybe Jim Crane wanted to replace him, but he's showing at the World Baseball Classic that he's somebody that still could be a force for the Houston Astros. We'll talk about this and more on this edition of the Locked On Astros podcast.
Alvarez hits a high drive center field. Veer leans back. This game is turned upside down. There's the runner. Fly ball down the right field line. Tucker comes on. Kyle Tucker. This time they finish the job.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Astros, your daily Astros podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric the Man Huysman and Brett H-Town Wheelhouse Chancey.
We are Locked On Houston Astros, and we update you joins for a daily Locked On Astros podcast. My name is Eric Huysman. You can find me on Twitter at Eric Talks Stros. Find the show at Locked On Astros, your team every day. You can find us on YouTube. Make sure you go and subscribe to us. Go and give us a big fat thumbs up while you're at it. And go and make us your first listen on Apple, Odyssey, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Go and check us out and make us your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Baseball GM. Have you ever dreamed of being the next Dana Brown for your Houston Astros, becoming an MLB GM? Well, that may be a little bit of a pipe dream, but you can actually do so on your phone. This game is definitely for you. To download the game, just visit the ultimatebaseballgm.com or look it up on the App Store. Our listeners get a 100% free boost, which I've been playing the game, and the boost does help, to their franchise when you use a promo Locked On, all caps, in the game. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but Dana Brown is here and he's trying to work on those extensions. Whether those get done or not, we'll have to see what happens in the future. But the future is bright for the Houston Astros, and then we see Dusty Baker bonding with a couple of the young rookies and taking them on a fishing trip and to try to find some common ground with them. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Martin Maldonado was part of history. Well, I don't know if Major League Baseball will recognize that history because it wasn't a full 9 innings. But once again, he did something that he was part of something that was historical, like he did with the Houston Astros this season. And then also Framber Valdez did a great pitching effort, just kind of tuning up for the regular season. Instead of participating in the World Baseball Classic, he chose the way of I just want to get ready for a season. And so we'll talk about that in a little bit. And let's go ahead and also talk about the fourth roster spot. The fourth outfielder spot. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. So much to really kind of to talk about here. And I'm so jealous of Brett right now. He's down there in spring training. I think he's going to watch a Astros game and then head up to watch a World Baseball Classic game tonight. So that's why he's not doing it. And I may be doing some shows at night this week, some shows in the morning, just because of my schedule this week. That's what happens when you have a teacher on spring break. You have to kind of have your priorities. But let's go and get started with what happened yesterday. It was Team Israel versus Team Puerto Rico. And I was at somebody's house watching that game. And I was like, man, this looks like a juggernaut. This looks like David versus Goliath, and it looks like there was no way that Team Israel was going to get a hit. And so we actually went for a walk for a little bit, and when we came back, I'm like, I wonder if they got a hit yet. They didn't even get a hit. They didn't even get a walk. It was a perfect game. But the only thing was it didn't go 9 innings. And so a lot of people are saying, well, that's not really a perfect game if it only goes 8 innings. And the reason why it only went 8 innings is because Martin Maldonado in the 8th inning scored the 10th run, which in the World Baseball Classic has this thing like the mercy rule, where if you're up after, I guess it's 5 or maybe 7 innings, I don't know exact rule, but by 10 runs, then you're going to go ahead and you win the game just to save innings, because most pitchers are on a 65 pitch count in the World Baseball Classic. And so that's what happened this game. Not only did Maldonado do that, he played great defense, but he scored 3 runs as well. He walked twice, and he's batting .500 in the World Baseball Classic, and he looks like a whole different hitter. maybe being healthy, his hand is feeling better. He dropped some weight in the offseason. Maybe we could see a whole different hitter for the Houston Astros this year. So that's good. And so the Puerto Rican pitchers, they pitched 8 innings, no hits, no walks, 12 strikeouts. And then the Astros had a, Astro Wolf Craig says it's the rule is up by 10 after 7 or up by 15 after 5. So yeah, if you're up by 15 after 5 innings, that's pretty depressing. Yeah, so I would want to do that too. So then if you look at the Astros had one of their top prospects, Colton Gordon, pitching for Team Israel. And there's a whole bunch of talk that he was tipping his pitches. And so if you watch, he's a left-hander. With a certain pitch, he would be right here. With another pitch, he would be right here. So they're talking about that in the broadcast. And he gave up 3 runs in the first inning and then 1 run in the second inning before he was chased. So that's something that the Astros need to go ahead and address with him before he progresses too far in the minor leagues. But he has a 36 ERA. But we see for Team Canada, I believe it was, they had an 18-year-old pitcher going. So you have some of these, you can only use certain pitchers so many days and then for so many pitches. So you have to use what you got. And so unfortunately, Team Israel was just not, they didn't have what it took that day. But Dominican Republic had a pretty good pitcher on the mound. And we know him pretty well because he is one of our favorite pitchers, and that's Christian Javier. And once again, he pitched, I'm trying to get to it. There it is. He pitched 4 innings, 2 hits, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. So he's looking good so far. And then so it looks like the Astros rotation is looking pretty good so far. You had Hunter Brown have a better outing on Sunday. I know Jose Urquidy is not looking great in World Baseball Classic. I think he had 1 good outing. It was okay outing, but so we'll have to see how the Astros rotation looks at the end of the day. But I don't know where I put my folder, but the prospects out there for veteran starters at this point are not that great. You have Mike Minor, and he was like 4-12 with a 6-something ERA last year. And then you have you have Chris Archer. Chris Archer had a 4-8 record last year. Then you have Michael Pineda, and then I can't. Who's the other guy? He used to pitch for the Orioles. I'll remember his name in a little bit, but I had it all written down, but I can't remember where I put my fancy notebook. Anyway, so there's just not many veteran arms out there that you can go out and get. So the Astros are stuck with what they got. So they better hope that Lance McCullers, who is supposed to throw again tomorrow, he threw on Sunday, and he's supposed to continue to throw every other day. So that's an update about him. So that's what you can kind of expect, is that they're going to kind of gradually kind of increase his workload until he can start throwing off the mound. So once I said, like I said in the last podcast, it's going to be a while before we see him in an actual game. So one other note about the World Baseball Classic, Kyle Tucker did have an RBI in his game, but overall he's batting 200. And Tim Anderson, I know Astros fans don't really like Tim Anderson, but he's having a pretty good World Baseball Classic playing second base. So maybe to change second base is good for him. But overall, Lance Lynn pitched pretty good for Team USA. And so, and then overall, I think what we're seeing from the World Baseball Classic is rejuvenated fans. And this is just something that it's exciting to see. Just fans excited about baseball. And we're hoping that, we see that all the time with Astros fans, but if you watch a Pirates game, how often are people excited about watching a Pirates game? And so if you want to get your team excited about a baseball team, why don't you become a GM? So you know how you can do that? You can download the Ultimate GM app. I have it at the bottom of the screen, and I'm really geeked out about it. And by our new partner and sponsor today's episode, the mobile game Ultimate Baseball GM. Have you ever dreamed about being an MLB GM and you want to know how you get started? Well, this is probably not the best way to get started, but it's really fun. I was playing with it this morning, and it's just kind of a good way to manage the Houston Knights. It's not the Houston Astros, but it's the Houston Knights, and you can go ahead and like Dana Brown did. Okay, who's on my team right now? Okay, I don't like this guy. I want to go ahead and get rid of him, and I want to go trade for somebody. Oh, I want to go ahead and add somebody via free agency. This is what you can do. You have a budget. You have your manager. Your manager's on expiring contract. Do you want to bring him back? You have your bench coach. He's on a 5-year deal. Do you want to bring him back? And then once you get your team where you want it to be, you just run a simulation, and it runs through the whole year. And then it decides on who wins the World Series or not. And so it's just pretty cool. You can have a trade deadline and everything. So you can hire the right coaches and staff, manage team finances, scouting and drafting players, manage the difficult personalities. They have them if they even have them if they're unhappy. So if you have somebody that says, "Pay me, Rick," I don't know if it says "Pay me, Rick," but you can go ahead and they say that they're unsatisfied. So all this in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Baseball GM is completely free and playable offline. Play on go as you want and when you want. And so it's just really awesome. And I know Brett started it too. And it's just something that y'all should do too. It's the Ultimate Pro GM. And just go do it today. Just go to the App Store, whether you're on Android, anything like that. Just go do it. And if you use the code Locked On, you'll get 100%. You'll get a 100% free boost to their franchise when you use the promo code Locked On in the game store. So make sure to check it out. To download the game, just visit probaseballgm.com, scan the code, or look it up in the App Store. That's probaseballgm.com, Ultimate Baseball GM. Start your dynasty today, like your Houston Astros. Okay, so speaking of Houston Astros, Framber Valdez is going to be the ace of the Houston Astros, and it's going to be something that, we'll talk about Torres in a second, but we'll talk about what happened in that game too yesterday. But that's where I was leading up to. But let me find that game. But Framber Valdez pitched really good. He's just tuning up. 4 innings, 4 hits, 1 home run allowed, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. This is the Framber Valdez we all wanted. He skipped the World Baseball Classic, which was probably the best idea after having his highest workload. And he said, I felt comfortable with those 4 innings today. That home run really didn't mean that much to me. He made a really good swing, made contact, hit it out. For me, it was just refocus and continue attacking the zone. He was also called for a balk while he was trying to do a sidestep. So he's just trying to work on not having runners run on him a lot. So basically, Dusty Baker said that he was vintage Framber. His breaking ball isn't quite where he wants it to be, but his command and his control is really good. And he said, I'm here and I'm just trying to prepare for the season. The reason I didn't go was I just didn't feel ready to be there at the moment. And I'm just continuing to prepare for the very long season that we're going to have ahead of us. Definitely supporting all of our guys from this team that are playing for Dominican Republic, even guys from the other teams that are playing for Dominican Republic. I know that it feels really good to represent the country, and nothing but the best. So it's good to see Valdez out there just doing what he does. And so, and then Torres, yes, this is a guy that's probably not on Astros radar anytime soon. But in 2/3 of inning, he gave up 3 hits, 5 runs, and 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. His ERA for spring training is 67.50. That's probably not a good impression for Dusty Baker, just saying, but he did give up those 5 runs in the 8th inning, and the Astros went on to lose that game 7-6. So unfortunately, you're going to lose some games like that because you're going to have some minor league arms come in, and so I'm not worried about that. But so Yeah, it's just you're going to have that situation. One thing I would kind of bring up else from pitching wise from this game was that Austin Davis did have his first rough outing of spring training, and this is a guy that's competing for Matt Gage for the left-handed reliever in the bullpen. So it was he did have 2 walks and allowed 1 earned run in 1 1/3 innings. But his ERA on spring training is 1.80. So that's not something to be too worried about. And Ty Buttrey, who's trying to work his way back into big leagues after retiring, then unretiring and going back to AAA, has a 7.71 ERA, and he's struggling big time with control. So I think that's something to kind of keep an eye on. But I don't know if he had any the Astros had any intentions of him being on the opening day roster anyway. So that's kind of all I had to say about the pitching. Greg Kessinger had a home run, and then you had Bregman with a hit. But Jose Abreu is struggling a little bit this spring training, and I'm not too surprised. He's trying to get acclimated to a new team. I would guess that a veteran guy like him is not too worried about spring training stats. So I'm not too worried about him. Will Wagner is still doing great. He got another hit, and he's batting .417 on the spring training. Corey Lee went 2 for 2 and played some first base. He came in and played 3 innings at first base. So it's good that Dusty Baker and Houston Astros are like, well, Yainer Diaz, part of his markability to make the team is the fact that he can play first base. Corey Lee is only a catcher. So let's see how he can do playing first base. So you can look at that as the Astros looking at some other ways to get Corey Lee on his team. And so both hitters are turning it up. Diaz is batting 300. Lee is batting 333. Sorry, 375. Yeah, all the numbers are starting to blur together. Hensley is batting 333. And so you have the impact rookie guys that are going to have big impact with this team this year. They're all hitting above 300. So that's a good thing for the Houston Astros. And then you have the fact that Michael Brantley, who has reported to camp finally, and he's going to be a little bit behind. That's putting it mildly. And he's probably not going to be ready for opening day, but there's going to be opening for a 4th outfielder. So enter Justin Dearden. We talked about him last time. He didn't play in yesterday's game, but I think he's playing in one of the 2 doubleheader games today. And guess who else is on the lineup card for today? Pedro Leon. He's not in the lineup, but he's listed as a backup. So that's a big step that he's actually listed as a backup and he's ready to start playing in some games. So that means that he's probably healed there. So we can look at that as well. And so overall, the spring training is going pretty well. I know JJ Madjevic is batting .294. He is on the 40-man roster. Dearden is not. But you know what happened last Thursday was there was an off day, and Dusty Baker took 3 of his rookies on a little fishing trip. He chartered a boat, and he's heard that Corey Lee and David Hensley like to find a whole bunch of ponds around Florida and just go fishing. And so he heard that they like to brag about their fishing. So he was like, let me see if these youngsters actually know how to fish. And so he also brought a 3rd guy along, Hunter Brown. And so this was a good opportunity for him to kind of have a bonding experience with these guys. These guys are going to have critical roles for the Houston Astros in 2023. So why not? Why not just take him out there? And so I think they didn't really have much success. I think Hunter Brown caught a swordfish, if I remember correctly. But this was just a way for them to just bond. And I know that there's some history with Lee because Baker son played with him in college and Cal. But also Lee said, we all enjoy fishing. It's something that Dusty and I kind of bond about. We talk about fishing, talk about where we're going to fish. It was a mutual bonding experience, and I think we had a really good time. And hopefully we can continue to do it throughout the year and kind of make it a thing. So, and Hensley said it was exciting, but wasn't eventful. Hung out like some boys. And so And if you think about what happened, Corey Lee has kind of turned it up a little bit since the fishing trip. Hunter Brown had his best start after that fishing trip. So maybe this was a way to kind of make the boys relax a little bit and just say, okay, I know everything's on the line. Hunter Brown is in the rotation. That's not a worry. But for somebody like Corey Lee, who's had the top prospect label put on him since almost the beginning, but now this is him fighting with Diaz for the backup catcher spot. And so maybe this was a way for him to relax. And so I think this was really good situation for him. And props for Dusty Baker to do that. So that was a good little experience for all of them and in that situation. So we do need to take a second and talk about FanDuel. I know that the midway point of the NBA season is here. The Houston Rockets are super great team. They're probably going to compete for the NBA championship in the next couple years. But this is the perfect time to download FanDuel. It's Americans' #1 sportsbook because the new customers get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet does not win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. And if you want to bet on the Astros going back to the World Series again, or you want to bet on maybe Hunter Brown winning the Rookie of the Year this year, or you want to bet on like Christian Javier being the Cy Young Award winner, whatever the bets you want to go do it at FanDuel. Sorry, lost my train of thought. But it's just a great place to do it. And FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance for a bigger payout with the same game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to this. Oh, by the way, I did get some, like I showed on the last podcast, I did get a couple of bobbleheads. I met with somebody off Facebook. I got this one, and I did get a Craig Biggio Cooperstown bobblehead. And one of my favorite ones, especially with me and my cowboy hat now, since I'm apparently cowboy, is Lance Berkman with a cowboy hat on. So anyway, I'm always looking to add to my bobblehead collection. So Ryan says that fishing brings up morale. Yeah, it does. I mean, it's just a way to kind of just, I mean, I went to an event with a lot of my APs at my school and the principal, and it was just a chance to really talk to them in a different environment. So without the stress of, oh, that's my boss. You can kind of talk to them as people. So I think that's kind of situation there. So definitely a cool situation for Dusty Baker to take time out of his. I mean, he could have just stayed at home and been like, you know what, this is the one day I get to relax. But I mean, I guess fishing could be relaxing for him too. So I know that could be a issue for him. But a lot of people are talking about Justin Dearden. Could he be the fourth outfielder for the Houston Astros? And Dana Brown was actually asked that, and he said, "Well, if Michael Brantley is not ready for opening day, how does that affect your thing?" And he said, "Well, he was sidelined because he's got some family stuff going on, but he's back today, so hopefully he could get amped up and running. But if he's not back, we have McCormick and Myers, and it'll be McCormick, Myers, and Tucker. You're looking at some competition after that with Dearden, who's been swinging the bat in camp very well." And then Tags asked, well, so Dearden has played his way into conversation for the opening day roster. And Brown said, well, we'll have to continue to scout him this spring. He has made some adjustments. He has some adjustments he needs to make in the batter's box. But I can see the power. Without question, he's got really good power. He can really throw. I know you guys are watching and saw that one hopper he made on Sunday. He can run. He's got the tools. I just think he needs to clean up his hitting approach a little bit as well. And so then he was asked about the rotation. He said, well, what about the starting pitching depth beyond the 5 expected starters? And Brown said, well, Forrest Whitley threw the other day. He threw well the other day, even though his line didn't look great. He was up to 95 miles per hour. We have JP France, who's going to be coming back from an injury. And of course, Brandon Belak is an option. We're going to have to keep evaluating those guys. And you have some of the kids like Jamie Melendez, who I really like. We have to keep an eye on him. All in all, we have some depth there. And he asked, well, is there some young guys at the minor league camp that stood out? He brought up Drew Gilbert. He can't wait till he's ready to go. Jacob Melton looks good. Misael Tamares is really exciting. And then Spencer Arrighetti is really good. And so those are some names he brought up. So, and then Tags brought up Ronel Blanco, and he's thrown up to 2 2/3 innings in game. How's that going? And Brown said, well, I think he's throwing well. He's got 7 2/3 innings, 9 punch out, 1 earned run. He's throwing the ball well. I think he's building up the innings. We keep doing that. As I said before, if he doesn't work, we're going to end up having a guy that can go multiple innings as opposed to just one. I think it's a win-win situation with him. He could be a shot and arm that we need in terms of starting pitching depth. That's what my hope is. And he was asked about the lefty reliever competition. And this is what I talked about earlier. He said Matt Gage is looking really good. Against the Mets the other day, he came in and was up to 93 to 95 miles per hour, had a filthy cutter, and was 97 and was back-footing right-handers. And then he looks really good. That waiver claim was recommended by our front office, and I kind of closed the deal on it. I think it's looking like a pretty good claim right now. We'll see if he's the big chip for us right now. So I think the Astros are really counting on Matt Gage being that guy. And so there's a lot of eggs in that basket. And I think that they really went like Dana Brown really grew up as a GM with that waiver claim because it wasn't your traditional waiver claim. He had to actually give him a bonus to actually come sign with the Astros instead of going over to Japan. Speaking of Japan, this is the only time I'm going to mention this, but nobody can say in the chat anymore, well, go out and sign a former Dodgers pitcher because he's going to Japan for at least one season. And then I'm sure his agent's like, just go over there, play for Japan for 1 year, and then everybody will forget about the situation. I don't think that's how it works, but have fun over there, Trevor. But you will never pitch for the Houston Astros, hopefully. But at least we don't have to see in the chats anymore. Just go sign that guy because I did not want that guy on my team whatsoever. But let's see. Ryan said, Darby says, how do you have so many bobbleheads? Do you buy them or you get most of them from giveaways? I do go to most of the giveaways. I did start kind of small. I would get some here and there, but then at a certain point, I think it's when I started podcasting, I just was like, you know what? I want to build up my collection. And then I just started to grow from there and there. And so, yeah, it's a big collection because y'all see this level, but there's actually a third level down here. And I never opened this one because it's like, I don't know. This is one of the ones I like the most, but I just never opened it. It's the Orbit Thor. And so one of my first ones was, it's one of my Bagwells. I think, like, I remember this one was one of my first ones. It's like a Lance Berkman bobblehead, but I'm pretty sure I've got some other ones. I just can't see them off the top of my head. I've got so many down here, but anyway, so yeah, my bobblehead collection has been growing around for many years, but apparently Jake Myers has been battling a tight hamstring, but Dusty Baker said he should play in one of the Astros games. So apparently he's not as healthy as we thought he was. Alvarez has a scheduled day off from hitting. I believe that was yesterday, so maybe he might be hitting today. So I think they're going really kind of slow with him. And other than that, McCullers threw from the second time in batting cage yesterday, and I think he's supposed to throw again on Wednesday. So he's going to be throwing every other day. So definitely something to keep your eye out of. But I think that what we're seeing is the Astros are doing a good job of finding depth options if their guys aren't ready to go. Like Lance McCullers, not ready. Michael Brantley may not be ready. So they're getting Forrest Whitley and they're getting Blanco ready just in case. And they're also getting Justin Dearden ready just in case he needs to go. Or you have JJ Madajevic, who has played in the big league. So, guys, I think that's all we got for this edition of the Locked On Astros podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. And I'll probably do a podcast tonight. And we'll talk about today's doubleheader, what's gone on with the World Baseball Classic and everything like that. So thank you for making us your first listen every day. And you can find us on Twitter at Locked On Astros. You can find me at Eric Talk Stros. You can find Brett at H-Town Wheelhouse. And go ahead and subscribe to us if this is your first time listening. Thank you. Just tell a friend and go and spread the word. And we'll be back later tonight for another podcast. And make sure you check out the Locked On Fantasy Baseball guys. They do a great job. Make them your second listen. Like I was listening before my draft the other day and just kind of hear what are the names that I don't know about, because there's so many. If you think there's a lot of players in Astros organization, think about Major League Baseball. Who are the prospects you need to go look out for? So go check out the Locked On Fantasy Baseball guys on Apple, Odyssey, Spotify, wherever you check out your podcasts. Check them out and make us your first listen, the Locked On Astros podcast, and go Astros.